John Thompson was a man of immense success, known to all as a renowned millionaire entrepreneur. He had built an empire with his sharp business acumen and unyielding determination. His name was synonymous with luxury and power. Yet, despite all his accomplishments, John felt a profound emptiness. In his lavish office in the heart of New York City, surrounded by elegant furniture and rare works of art, he often found himself lost in thought. John had everything money could buy: mansions, exotic cars, and even a private jet. But what truly troubled him was the doubt about the sincerity of the people around him. He had been betrayed many times by those who only wanted to take advantage of his wealth. This growing mistrust affected all his relationships, including his engagement to Emma. Emma was a beautiful, intelligent, and charismatic woman. From their first meeting, she brought a new light into John's life. They shared magical moments, and it seemed she loved him for who he was, not for what he owned. However, the doubt was always there, a constant shadow in his mind. Does she really love me? He often wondered. John's doubts were not baseless. His past was filled with people who had deceived him, using his generosity for their gain. Despite his success, he had a history of broken relationships and friendships turned sour. His wealth had become both a blessing and a curse, providing him with comfort, but also isolating him from genuine human connection. One evening, as John sat on his balcony overlooking the city's dazzling lights, he made a decision. The city's hum was a distant background noise to his thoughts. He gazed at the engagement ring in his hand, glittering in the moonlight, and decided that he needed to know the truth about Emma's feelings. He had to test her love in a way that would leave no room for doubt. John's plan was bold and unconventional. He decided he would disguise himself as a poor man on their wedding day. He would wear a shabby suit and arrive in an old rusty car. This would be the ultimate test to see if Emma's love was genuine or if it was merely a facade for his wealth. He confided his plan to his closest friend, Michael, who was both surprised and concerned. Michael had known John for years and understood the depth of his insecurities. "Are you sure about this, John?" Michael asked, his brow furrowed with worry. "What if she passes the test, but then resents you for putting her through it?" John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I have to know, Michael. I can't spend my life wondering if the woman I love is with me for the right reasons. If Emma truly loves me, she'll understand why I did this." The days leading up to the wedding were filled with meticulous preparation. John purchased a worn-out suit from a thrift store, something completely out of character for him. He rented an old, beat-up car that looked like it was on its last legs. He rehearsed his appearance, making sure he looked the part of a man who had fallen on hard times. On the morning of the wedding, John stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his tie. He looked at his reflection, almost not recognizing the man staring back at him. Gone was the polished, confident businessman. In his place was a man who looked weary and worn. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. As John drove to the wedding venue in the rusty car, he couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The usually confident man now felt a knot of nervousness in his stomach. The city streets blurred past him as he focused on the task ahead. He arrived at the venue, where a crowd of well-dressed guests had already gathered. The moment John stepped out of the car, murmurs rippled through the crowd. People exchanged puzzled and disapproving glances. John could see the confusion and judgment in their eyes. He walked slowly towards the entrance, his heart pounding. Inside, Emma was getting ready with her bridesmaids, unaware of the commotion outside. She was radiant, her eyes sparkling with excitement. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. But as she stepped out to greet her guests, her smile faltered when she saw John. Gasps filled the room as Emma's eyes met John's. For a moment, there was complete silence. John stood there, his heart in his throat, waiting for her reaction. He braced himself for disappointment, for anger, for anything that would confirm his worst fears. But then, something unexpected happened. Emma's expression softened, and she ran towards John, throwing her arms around him. "John, what happened?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "Why are you dressed like this?" John was taken aback. He had prepared for every possible reaction except this. "Emma, I needed to know if you loved me for who I am, not for my money." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, and she shook her head. How could you doubt that? I love you, John. I don't care about the money. I care about you. As she spoke, John's heart swelled with relief and joy. He realized that Emma's love was genuine, that she truly cared for him. The doubts that had plagued him for so long began to melt away. Emma's reaction was not only a testament to her love, but also a lesson for John about trust and faith in the people he cared about. The guests, initially shocked and confused, began to understand the significance of the moment. Their murmurs turned to whispers of admiration and respect. John and Emma's embrace symbolized the triumph of true love over superficial judgments and societal expectations. John first met Emma on a crisp autumn day in Central Park. He had decided to take a rare break from his hectic schedule to enjoy a peaceful walk among the falling leaves and the cool breeze. As he strolled along a winding path, he noticed a woman sitting on a bench, absorbed in a book. Her auburn hair shimmered in the sunlight, and her serene expression caught his attention. There was something captivating about her, something that made him pause. Emma, engrossed in her novel, didn't notice John at first. She turned the pages with a delicate grace, completely immersed in the story. John hesitated, then approached her, clearing his throat softly. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" he asked, gesturing to the empty space beside her. Startled, Emma looked up and smiled. "No, go ahead," she replied, her voice warm and inviting. John sat down, feeling an unfamiliar flutter of nerves. They exchanged pleasantries, and soon, a conversation flowed naturally between them. John was struck by Emma's intelligence and wit. She spoke passionately about the book she was reading, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. As the afternoon passed, they continued talking about everything and anything, their favorite books, movies, and the quirks of city life. John found himself laughing more than he had in months, charmed by Emma's genuine laughter and her ability to find joy in the simplest things. It was a refreshing change from the superficial conversations he was accustomed to in his high-powered social circles. They agreed to meet again, and one date turned into several. They explored the city together, from art galleries to cozy cafes, discovering a shared love for adventure and creativity. Emma introduced John to her favorite hidden gems, and he, in turn, shared his passion for business and innovation. Despite their different backgrounds, they found common ground and a deep connection. One evening, after a particularly enchanting date, John walked Emma to her apartment. They stood at her doorstep, the night air filled with the sounds of the bustling city. "I had a wonderful time tonight," John said, his eyes searching hers. "Me too," Emma replied, her cheeks flushed with excitement. There was a moment of silence, a charged pause that held a world of possibilities. John took a step closer, his heart pounding, and Emma met him halfway. Their first kiss was tender and electric, sealing the bond that had been forming between them. From that moment on, their relationship blossomed. John felt a sense of completeness he hadn't known before. Emma's presence brought light and warmth into his life, something he had longed for but never quite found. She made him feel seen, valued for who he was, not just his wealth and status. As they spent more time together, John learned about Emma's dreams and aspirations. She was an artist, passionate about creating pieces that captured the essence of human emotion. Her studio was a small, cluttered space filled with canvases and paints, a stark contrast to John's sleek and modern office. Yet, it was in that chaotic studio that John felt most at home, surrounded by Emma's creativity and passion. Their love story seemed perfect, almost too good to be true. John couldn't shake the lingering fear that it might all be an illusion. He had been hurt before, and the scars of those betrayals made him wary. But every time he saw Emma's radiant smile, heard her infectious laughter, those fears seemed to melt away, replaced by a growing certainty that she was the one. However, the shadow of doubt still loomed over John. He couldn't ignore the nagging voice in his head that questioned the authenticity of Emma's love. This internal struggle grew more intense as their relationship deepened. John knew he had to confront his fears, to find a way to put them to rest once and for all. And so, the stage was set for the ultimate test of their love, a test that would challenge everything they had built together. It was a balmy summer evening when John decided to propose to Emma. They were dining at their favorite rooftop restaurant, a quaint spot that overlooked the glittering skyline of New York City. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft hum of distant traffic. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the city, John knew the moment was perfect. Emma looked stunning in a simple, elegant dress, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. Her eyes sparkled with happiness as she chatted about a recent art exhibit she had visited. John listened intently, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had planned this evening meticulously, ensuring every detail was perfect. The waiter brought out their dessert, a decadent chocolate mousse, and discreetly placed a small box on the table. Emma didn't notice at first, too engrossed in her story. John took a deep breath, his fingers trembling slightly as he reached for the box. "Emma," he said softly, interrupting her mid-sentence, "there's something I need to ask you." She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise as she saw the box in his hand. John slid off his chair and knelt on one knee, opening the box to reveal a dazzling diamond ring. Gasps and whispers erupted from the other diners, but John only had eyes for Emma. "Emma, you have brought so much joy and light into my life. You make me a better man, and I can't imagine my future without you. Will you marry me?" For a moment, there was complete silence. Emma's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Oh, John," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, of course I'll marry you." John slipped the ring onto her finger, his heart soaring as she pulled him into a tight embrace. Applause erupted around them, but they were lost in their own world. The joy on Emma's face was undeniable, and John felt an overwhelming sense of relief and happiness. For that moment, all his doubts and fears were forgotten. As they celebrated with champagne, John couldn't help but marvel at how perfect everything seemed. Emma was radiant with happiness, showing off her ring to the nearby tables. John felt like the luckiest man in the world. He had found someone who loved him deeply and genuinely, or so he believed. They spent the rest of the evening dancing under the stars, wrapped in each other's arms. The music, the laughter, the twinkling lights of the city, everything felt magical. John held Emma close, his doubts melting away in the warmth of her love. But as the night drew to a close and they returned to Emma's apartment, those familiar shadows of doubt began to creep back into John's mind. He watched Emma as she happily chatted about wedding plans, her face glowing with excitement. Could it really be true? Could someone as wonderful as Emma love him for who he was, and not just for his wealth? John tried to push these thoughts aside, focusing instead on the happiness of the moment. But deep down, he knew that his fears would not be so easily quelled. He would have to confront them, and soon, if he wanted to build a future with Emma free of doubt and suspicion. As Emma drifted off to sleep that night, her hand resting on his chest, John lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He knew what he had to do. The plan that had been forming in his mind for weeks now solidified into a firm resolve. He would test Emma's love, once and for all. It was the only way to be sure. And so, as the city slept around them, John began to plot the most audacious move of his life, one that would test the very foundation of their relationship. The stage was set for a revelation that would change everything. Despite the magical proposal and the joy that followed, John's doubts did not fade. In fact, as the days passed and the wedding plans progressed, those doubts seemed to grow stronger. It wasn't that Emma did anything to make him suspicious. On the contrary, she was as loving and supportive as ever, throwing herself into the wedding preparations with infectious enthusiasm. But John's past experiences had left deep scars, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. John's wealth had always been a double-edged sword. While it afforded him a lifestyle most could only dream of, it also attracted people who were more interested in his bank account than in him as a person. He had seen it time and time again. Friends who turned out to be leeches, relationships that soured when the money flow stopped, and business partners who betrayed him for a quick profit. These experiences had made John wary, always questioning the true intentions of those around him. One evening, as John sat alone in his study, sipping a glass of whiskey, he found himself thinking about these past betrayals. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the flickering fireplace and the city lights outside the window. The shadows seemed to dance on the walls, mirroring the turmoil in his mind. Could Emma be different? Could she truly love him for who he was, and not for what he had? These thoughts plagued him constantly. He confided in his best friend, Michael, hoping for some reassurance. Michael had been John's confidant for years, a steady presence through all the ups and downs. They met at a small, exclusive bar they often frequented, the kind of place where they could talk freely without being overheard. Michael listened patiently as John poured out his heart. "I just can't shake the feeling, Mike," John said, staring into his drink. "What if Emma is just another person after my money? What if she doesn't really love me?" Michael leaned back in his chair, considering his friend's words. "John, I get it. You've been hurt before, and it's natural to be cautious. But Emma seems different. She seems genuine." "I know she does," John replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "But I've thought that before and I was wrong. I can't make the same mistake again." Michael sighed, rubbing his temples. "So what are you going to do? Cancel the wedding?" John shook his head. "No, I can't do that. I love her too much to just walk away. But I need to know, Mike. I need to be sure." Michael gave him a long, thoughtful look. "What if you tested her? Put her in a situation where her true feelings would come out?" John's eyes widened slightly as the idea took root. "What do you mean?" "Something drastic," Michael continued. "Something that would reveal her true intentions. It might sound crazy, but if you need to be sure, maybe that's the way to go." John sat back, contemplating his friend's suggestion. It was risky, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized it might be the only way to put his doubts to rest. He needed a plan, something that would test Emma's love without her knowing she was being tested. As the evening wore on, John and Michael brainstormed ideas, each more daring than the last. Finally, John settled on a plan that felt right. It was bold and unconventional, but it would give him the answers he sought. He would disguise himself as a poor man on their wedding day, wearing shabby clothes and arriving in a beat-up car. It would be the ultimate test to see if Emma's love was genuine. With the plan set in motion, John felt a mix of relief and anxiety. He knew it was a gamble, but it was one he had to take. The next few weeks were filled with secret preparations, each step bringing him closer to the moment of truth. With the plan solidified in his mind, John knew he needed to share his intentions with someone he trusted implicitly. Michael, his best friend since college, was the only person who fit the bill. They had been through thick and thin together, and John valued Michael's insight and honesty. He arranged to meet Michael at their usual spot, a cozy bar tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. The bar was dimly lit, its wooden interior exuding a sense of old-world charm. As John walked in, the familiar scent of aged whiskey and polished wood greeted him. He spotted Michael at their usual table, a corner booth that afforded them privacy. Michael was already nursing a drink, his brow furrowed in thought. "John, you look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders," Michael said as John slid into the seat opposite him. John sighed heavily, signaling the bartender for a drink. "I need to talk to you about something serious, Mike. Something that's been eating away at me." Michael leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "What's going on, man?" John took a deep breath and began to explain his plan. He laid out his doubts about Emma, his fear that her love might not be genuine, and his need to test her to be absolutely sure. As he spoke, Michael listened intently, his face a mask of concentration. "You know I've been burned before, Mike. I can't go through that again. I need to know if Emma loves me for who I am, not for my money," John said, his voice tinged with desperation. Michael took a long sip of his drink, contemplating John's words. "I get it, John. I really do. But are you sure about this? Testing her like that, it could backfire. She might not understand why you're doing it." John nodded. "I've thought about that. But if she really loves me, she'll understand. And if she doesn't, well, better to find out now than later." Michael leaned back, letting out a slow breath. "All right, so what's the plan?" John explained his idea in detail. He would show up at the wedding in a tattered suit and an old rusty car. He would look like he had fallen on hard times, to see how Emma would react. Michael listened, occasionally nodding or asking questions. but his face remained serious. "That's bold," Michael finally said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, "but it might just work. You'll need to make sure everything is perfect, the suit, the car, your whole appearance. It has to be convincing." "I know," John replied. "I've already started making preparations. I bought a suit from a thrift store, and I'm renting the car tomorrow." Michael shook his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Only you, John. Only you would go to such lengths. But I hope it gives you the answers you're looking for." John felt a wave of relief wash over him. Sharing his plan with Michael had solidified his resolve. He knew it was a gamble, but with Michael's support, he felt more confident in his decision. They spent the rest of the evening discussing the finer details, ensuring that everything would go smoothly. As the night wore on, the bar grew quieter, the ambient noise fading into the background. John and Michael reminisced about their college days, their shared experiences, and the challenges they had overcome together. It was a reminder of the strong bond they shared, a bond that had stood the test of time. By the time John left the bar, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The doubts that had plagued him were still there, but now they were tempered with determination. He had a plan, and he had the support of his best friend. Now, all that was left was to see it through. With Michael's support bolstering his resolve, John dove headfirst into the preparations for his plan. He meticulously crafted his disguise, knowing that every detail had to be perfect to ensure the authenticity of his test. Each step brought him closer to uncovering the truth about Emma's love. First, John visited a local thrift store, a place he had never set foot in before. The air was thick with the scent of aged fabric and dust. He sifted through racks of worn-out clothing, searching for the perfect suit. It had to look convincing, as though it had been through years of wear and tear. After what felt like hours, he found it a frayed, outdated suit that fit him just well enough to look realistic, but poorly enough to suggest hardship. Next, he turned his attention to the car. John rented an old, rusty vehicle from a rundown rental service on the outskirts of the city. The car was a far cry from the luxurious sports cars he usually drove. Its faded paint and dented body told a story of neglect and tough times. John drove it back to his penthouse, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction as he parked it in the underground garage. With the suit and car sorted, John moved on to his appearance. He stopped shaving, allowing stubble to grow on his usually clean-shaven face. He ruffled his hair to give it a disheveled look and practiced looking weary and downtrodden in front of the mirror. It was a stark contrast to his usual polished and confident demeanor. In the days leading up to the wedding, John rehearsed his role meticulously. He walked with a slight slump, practiced speaking with a hint of hesitation, and even changed his gait to mimic someone who had seen better days. He knew he had to fully embody the character he was creating to make the deception believable. On the night before the wedding, John sat alone in his study, going over the final details. The room was dimly lit, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows on the walls. He held the engagement ring he had given Emma, feeling a pang of guilt for doubting her. But the need to know the truth outweighed the guilt. He had to be certain. As the sun rose on the day of the wedding, John donned the tattered suit. He looked at himself in the mirror, almost not recognizing the man staring back. Gone was the confident millionaire. In his place stood a man who had seemingly lost everything. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. Driving the old, rusty car to the wedding venue, John felt a mix of nerves and determination. The streets of New York passed by in a blur, his mind focused on the task ahead. He arrived at the venue early, parking the car out of sight. The usually bustling venue was quiet, with only a few staff members preparing for the day's events. John slipped inside, avoiding eye contact with anyone. He found a small, empty room where he could wait until the guests began to arrive. The minutes ticked by slowly, each one feeling like an eternity. He could hear the muffled sounds of people gathering, laughter and conversation filling the air. Finally, the time came. John took one last look in the mirror, adjusted his tie, and stepped out into the hallway. He walked towards the main hall, each step echoing loudly in his ears. As he entered, a hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to him, confusion and shock evident on their faces. Ignoring the whispers and murmurs, John made his way to the front of the room. Emma stood there, looking radiant in her wedding dress. Her smile faltered as she saw him, confusion replacing the joy in her eyes. "John, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. John took a deep breath. "Emma, there's something I need to explain," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I need to know if you love me for who I am, not for what I have. This is my way of finding out." The room fell silent, everyone waiting for Emma's reaction. John's heart pounded in his chest as he watched her, bracing himself for whatever came next. The wedding venue, a grand hall with tall, arched windows and opulent chandeliers, was filled with an air of anticipation. Guests had started arriving early, dressed in their finest attire, ready to witness what promised to be the wedding of the year. The hall buzzed with excitement and speculation about the lavish event, as friends, family, and influential figures in the business world mingled and chatted. As the crowd thickened, so did the hum of conversation. The guests, most of whom knew John Thompson's reputation and wealth, expected nothing short of a spectacular affair. They admired the exquisite floral arrangements and the elegant decor, all meticulously planned by one of the city's top wedding planners. In the midst of the excitement, whispers began to circulate. People noticed a conspicuous absence of the groom. "Where's John?" a well-dressed woman asked her husband, looking around the room with curiosity. "I thought he'd be here greeting everyone." "He must be getting ready," her husband replied, sipping champagne. "You know how these things go. The groom makes a grand entrance." However, the murmurs grew louder as more guests began to wonder about John's whereabouts. As the minutes ticked by, the mood shifted from excited anticipation to mild concern. The hall was nearly full now, with everyone eager to witness the momentous occasion. Suddenly, the sound of an engine sputtering to a halt outside drew the attention of those near the windows. Heads turned as an old, rusty car pulled up to the grand entrance. The vehicle looked wildly out of place amidst the luxury cars that lined the driveway. Gasps and puzzled looks spread through the crowd as the door creaked open and John stepped out. He wore the tattered suit he had carefully chosen, his hair disheveled and his face unshaven. The transformation was shocking. Gone was the image of the suave, polished businessman. In his place was a man who looked like he had hit hard times. John could feel the weight of every gaze as he walked towards the entrance, each step filled with purpose and trepidation. Inside, the whispers turned into a low murmur of disbelief. "Is that John?" someone asked incredulously. "What happened to him?" Others exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to make of the sight before them. John walked through the hall, his eyes scanning the room for Emma. He saw the confusion and concern in the eyes of his friends and colleagues, but he pressed on. He needed to see Emma's reaction, to understand her true feelings. As he approached the front of the room, where Emma stood with her bridesmaids, a hush fell over the crowd. Emma, radiant in her wedding gown, looked up and froze. Her eyes widened in shock, and she took a step back, clearly taken aback by John's appearance. The room seemed to hold its breath as John reached Emma. He could see the myriad emotions flickering across her face: confusion, concern, and something he couldn't quite place. He took a deep breath, his voice steady but soft. "Emma, I need to know something very important. I need to know if you love me for who I am, not for what I have." Emma blinked, her eyes filling with tears. She glanced around at the assembled guests, all watching intently, and then back at John. "John, what is this?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is me," John said simply. "Without the wealth, without the success. Just me. I need to know if that's enough for you." A tear rolled down Emma's cheek as she stepped closer to John, her hand reaching out to touch his cheek. "John, I love you. Not your money, not your success. You. I don't care about any of this." She gestured to his shabby suit and the old car outside. "I care about you." The room remained silent, but the tension began to dissipate as the guests realized the gravity of the moment. Emma's voice wavered with emotion, but her sincerity was unmistakable. "I love you, John, for who you are, not what you have." John's heart swelled with relief and gratitude. He pulled Emma into a tight embrace, his doubts and fears melting away. The guests, initially shocked, began to applaud, their admiration for the couple's love growing stronger. The test was over, and John had his answer. Emma's love was real, and nothing else mattered. The grand hall was a scene of splendor, with its high, vaulted ceilings adorned with crystal chandeliers and walls draped in rich, flowing fabrics. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as guests mingled, sipping champagne and exchanging stories. The orchestra played softly in the background, adding an air of sophistication to the gathering. As the crowd waited, anticipation grew. People whispered about the upcoming nuptials, the opulence of the venue, and of course, the wealthy groom. Everyone expected John Thompson to make a grand entrance, befitting his status and wealth. But when the doors swung open, revealing John in his shabby attire, a stunned silence fell over the room. John's heart pounded as he walked through the entrance. He felt the weight of every eye in the room on him. The luxurious surroundings contrasted starkly with his appearance, making his disheveled look even more jarring. He straightened his shoulders, determined to see this through. Emma stood at the far end of the hall, surrounded by her bridesmaids. Her smile, which had been bright and expectant, faltered as she saw John. The guests, who had been chatting animatedly, now exchanged bewildered glances, their murmurs growing louder. "Is that really John?" someone whispered. "What happened to him?" Ignoring the whispers, John focused on Emma. Her face was a mix of confusion and concern. He could see the questions in her eyes as he made his way towards her. Each step felt like an eternity, the sound of his worn shoes echoing off the marble floor. Emma stepped forward, her hand instinctively reaching out to him. "John, what's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you dressed like this?" John took a deep breath, his gaze steady on hers. "Emma, I need to know if you love me for who I am, not for what I have. This," he gestured to his shabby suit, "is me, without the wealth, without the success. Just me." A hush fell over the room as everyone waited for Emma's response. Her eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head slightly, trying to process what was happening. "John, I don't care about the money or the success. I love you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You didn't need to do this to prove it." John felt a wave of relief wash over him. He stepped closer to Emma, taking her hands in his. "I had to be sure," he whispered. "I couldn't go on without knowing for certain." Emma squeezed his hands, her tears now flowing freely. "You don't need to test my love, John. I'm here for you, no matter what." As they embraced, the room erupted in applause. The guests, initially shocked and confused, now clapped and cheered, moved by the raw emotion of the moment. John's closest friends and family, who had known his struggles, exchanged relieved smiles. The orchestra struck up a lively tune, and the mood in the hall shifted from bewilderment to celebration. People began to mingle again, congratulating John and Emma, their admiration for the couple clear in their warm words and smiles. John's heart swelled with gratitude as he looked at Emma, her face radiant with love. He had found his answer, and it was everything he had hoped for. The doubts that had plagued him melted away, leaving behind only the certainty of Emma's love. As the evening wore on, John and Emma danced under the twinkling chandeliers, surrounded by friends and family. The test was over, and their love had triumphed over doubt and fear. They were ready to face the future together, stronger and more united than ever. Emma's reaction to John's unexpected appearance was nothing short of astonishing. As John stood before her, dressed in tattered clothes and visibly vulnerable, she did not flinch or show any sign of disappointment. Instead, she ran to him, her eyes filled with concern and love, not embarrassment or disdain. "John, what happened?" Emma asked, her voice soft but urgent. She reached out to touch his face, her fingers tracing the lines of worry and fatigue that marred his handsome features. "Why are you dressed like this? Are you all right?" John looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of insincerity. But all he saw was genuine concern and unwavering love. "Emma, I needed to know if you loved me for who I am, not for what I have," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "This was the only way I could be sure." Emma shook her head, her auburn hair shimmering under the chandeliers. "John, you didn't need to do this. I love you, not your money, not your success. You." Her voice was steady, filled with a quiet strength that reassured John more than any grand declaration could. As they stood there, locked in a tight embrace, the guests began to murmur amongst themselves, the initial shock giving way to admiration. Many were moved by Emma's reaction, seeing her genuine love and concern for John. It was a testament to the strength of their relationship, a love that transcended material wealth and societal expectations. Among the guests, Michael watched with a knowing smile. He had been skeptical of John's plan, but now saw the wisdom in it. Emma's reaction had dispelled all of John's doubts, proving that her love was true and steadfast. John pulled back slightly, still holding Emma's hands. "I needed to be sure, Emma. I've been hurt before, and I couldn't go through that again. But seeing you now, I realize how wrong I was to doubt you." Emma's eyes softened with understanding. "I understand, John. I do. But please, never doubt my love for you again. We're in this together, no matter what." The sincerity in her words brought tears to John's eyes. He kissed her forehead tenderly, feeling an overwhelming sense of relief and joy. The applause from the guests grew louder, a collective acknowledgement of the couple's genuine love and commitment. The celebrant, who had been silently observing the heartfelt exchange, stepped forward with a warm smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, shall we proceed with the ceremony?" John and Emma nodded, their hands still intertwined. The celebrant's words echoed through the hall, but John barely heard them. He was lost in the moment, captivated by the love and trust that now flowed freely between them. As the ceremony continued, the guests settled into their seats, their initial surprise now replaced with genuine happiness for the couple. John could see the supportive smiles and nods from friends and family, and it warmed his heart. They understood now. They saw the depth of Emma's love for him, and it was more than he could have hoped for. When it was time for the vows, Emma spoke first, her voice clear and unwavering. "John, I promise to love you for who you are, not for what you have. I promise to stand by you through every trial, to support you in your dreams, and to cherish the love we share. No matter what life throws at us, I will always be by your side." John's heart swelled with emotion as he took his turn. "Emma, you are my heart and my soul. I promise to love you unconditionally, to protect you, and to never doubt the love we share. You've shown me what true love means, and I vow to honor that every day of our lives together." With those words, they exchanged rings, sealing their vows with a kiss that drew cheers and applause from everyone present. The love and commitment they displayed were palpable, and as they turned to face their guests, hand in hand, John felt a profound sense of peace. He had found his true partner, someone who loved him for who he was, and nothing else mattered. As the ceremony concluded and the newlyweds turned to face their guests, the applause gradually subsided, replaced by a palpable sense of curiosity. The crowd had been witness to an extraordinary display of love and authenticity, but there were still questions that lingered. John knew that this was the moment to address them, to confront the unspoken judgments and doubts that had likely formed in the minds of many. Taking a deep breath, John stepped forward, his hand still tightly holding Emma's. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady and strong. "I know that what you witnessed today was unexpected, to say the least. Many of you might be wondering why I chose to arrive in such a manner, why I appeared in these clothes." He paused, scanning the room, meeting the eyes of his closest friends and business associates. "This was not a stunt or a game," he continued. "It was a test, not of Emma, but of my own fears and insecurities. For too long, I've doubted the sincerity of those around me, haunted by the fear that my success and wealth overshadowed who I truly am. I needed to know, beyond any doubt, that Emma's love for me was genuine." A murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of understanding and lingering confusion. John's closest friend, Michael, nodded subtly, encouraging him to continue. "What you all saw today," John said, his voice growing more impassioned, "was a testament to true love. Emma proved to me, and to all of you, that her love is not swayed by wealth or status. She loves me for who I am, and for that, I am eternally grateful." Emma squeezed his hand, a silent show of support. John turned to her, his eyes softening. "Emma, you have shown me the true meaning of love. You've taught me that trust and sincerity are far more valuable than any material possession. I apologize for my doubts and thank you for your unwavering love." The room was silent, the weight of John's words sinking in. Then, one by one, the guests began to applaud. It started as a slow, hesitant clapping but quickly grew into a resounding show of support and admiration. John felt a wave of relief wash over him as he saw the approval in the eyes of those he respected and cared about. However, not everyone was ready to let the matter rest. A man in the back, one of John's older business associates, stepped forward. "John, while I admire your quest for authenticity, don't you think this was a bit extreme? Putting Emma through such a public test?" John nodded, acknowledging the concern. "I understand your point, and you're right to question my methods. It was a risk, and one that I wouldn't take lightly. But in my heart, I knew it was the only way to move forward without the shadow of doubt hanging over our relationship. Emma and I will face many challenges together, and we needed to start our life with absolute trust." Emma stepped forward, her gaze firm. "I stand by John's decision. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for us. Love isn't always straightforward or simple. Sometimes, it requires difficult choices and deep honesty. John's test, while unconventional, proved something vital for both of us." Her words resonated through the hall, dispelling the last of the skepticism. The room once again erupted in applause, a collective acknowledgement of the couple's courage and the strength of their bond. As the reception began in earnest, guests approached John and Emma with congratulations and words of admiration. They mingled and danced, the initial shock of the day's events giving way to a celebratory mood. John and Emma were surrounded by genuine smiles and heartfelt conversations, their love story becoming an inspiration to all. John felt a newfound sense of freedom and joy. The test had been a risk, but it had paid off in the most meaningful way. He had faced his deepest fears and emerged with a stronger, more authentic relationship. And as he looked at Emma, her face glowing with happiness, he knew that they could face any challenge together, united by a love that was truly genuine and unwavering. As the celebration continued around him, John found a moment of quiet reflection. He slipped away to the balcony of the grand hall, seeking a brief respite from the whirlwind of emotions and activity. The cool night air was a welcome contrast to the warmth inside. He leaned against the railing, looking out over the city lights, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. For years, John had built walls around his heart, a defense mechanism born out of past betrayals and disappointments. His wealth had always been a double-edged sword, providing immense comfort and security, but also attracting people who sought to exploit him. These experiences had shaped him into a cautious and sometimes cynical man, always questioning the sincerity of those around him. Tonight, those walls had finally come down. Emma's reaction had been more than he could have hoped for. Her genuine concern and unwavering love had shattered his doubts and fears. As he stood there, the gravity of what he had done hit him. He had put Emma through an intense test, one that could have easily backfired and damaged their relationship. Yet, she had proven her love in the most profound way. John's thoughts drifted back to their first meeting in Central Park, how she had captivated him with her warmth and intelligence. He remembered their countless dates, the laughter they shared, and the deep conversations that brought them closer. Despite all the signals that Emma was different, his past had made it difficult for him to fully trust. Looking out at the city, John realized how much he had let his fears dictate his actions. He had been so focused on protecting himself from potential hurt that he almost missed out on the most genuine relationship of his life. Emma's love had been steadfast and true, even in the face of his insecurities. John knew that moving forward, he had to change. He had to learn to trust, to open his heart fully and embrace the love Emma offered without reservation. This journey of self-discovery had been painful but necessary. It had shown him the depth of his own insecurities and the strength of Emma's love. As he stood there, deep in thought, the door to the balcony opened quietly. Emma stepped out, her eyes soft and concerned. She walked over to him, slipping her hand into his. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked gently. John smiled, squeezing her hand. Just reflecting on everything. How much I've doubted, how much I've let my past control me, and how much I need to change. Emma turned to face him, her eyes searching his. John, it's okay to have doubts. We all do. What matters is how we face them. You faced yours, and now we can move forward together. Her words were a balm to his soul. He pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling a surge of gratitude for her understanding and compassion. Thank you, Emma, for everything. For loving me despite my flaws and fears. I promise I will work on trusting more, on being the man you deserve. Emma smiled against his chest, her arms wrapped around him. We'll do it together, John. That's what love is about, supporting each other, growing together. In that quiet moment on the balcony, surrounded by the soft glow of the city lights, John felt a profound sense of peace. He had tested Emma's love, and it had withstood the challenge. Now, it was his turn to grow, to become the partner she needed and deserved. The future stretched out before them, filled with promise and possibility. John knew there would be challenges, but with Emma by his side, he felt ready to face them. Together, they would build a life based on trust, love, and mutual respect. And that, he realized, was the most valuable treasure of all. The atmosphere in the grand hall shifted as the initial shock of John's appearance gave way to genuine celebration. The guests, now understanding the depth of John and Emma's bond, were eager to join in the festivities with renewed vigor. The band struck up a lively tune, and the room was soon filled with the sound of laughter and conversation. John and Emma, their hands still intertwined, made their way through the throng of well-wishers. Friends and family members approached them with warm smiles and heartfelt congratulations. Each embrace and handshake was a reminder of the support and love that surrounded them. Emma's bridesmaids, who had been momentarily stunned by the earlier events, now beamed with joy. They gathered around Emma, admiring her resilience and expressing their admiration. "You were incredible," one of them said, her eyes shining with emotion. "You showed everyone what true love looks like." Emma smiled, her gaze drifting to John. "It's not always easy, but it's worth it. John and I are stronger for it." Meanwhile, John's closest friends pulled him aside, their expressions a mix of amusement and respect. "I have to hand it to you, John," Michael said, clapping him on the back. "That was one hell of a way to test someone's love. But it worked." "Emma's amazing." John nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude. "She is. I'm lucky to have her." The evening unfolded with a series of memorable moments. The couple's first dance was a poignant highlight. The orchestra played a soft, romantic melody as John led Emma to the center of the dance floor. They moved gracefully, their eyes locked, the world around them fading into the background. As they danced, John whispered, "Thank you for everything, Emma. For loving me, for understanding, for being you." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And thank you, John, for trusting me, for showing me your true self." Their dance was met with applause and cheers, the guests moved by the palpable love and connection between them. Soon, other couples joined in, filling the dance floor with swaying figures and happy faces. The evening continued with a sumptuous feast. Long tables laden with gourmet dishes and decadent desserts stretched across the hall. The guests indulged in the culinary delights, toasting to the happy couple and sharing stories of love and friendship. As John and Emma made their way through the hall, they stopped to chat with their guests, each interaction filled with warmth and sincerity. John's colleagues, who had seen him as a shrewd businessman, now saw a different side of him, a man deeply committed to love and authenticity. One of John's senior partners approached him with a glass of champagne. "John, I've known you for years, but tonight I saw a side of you I never knew existed. You have my utmost respect." John accepted the compliment with a humble nod. "Thank you. This night has taught me a lot about what really matters." The speeches that followed were equally touching. Emma's maid of honor spoke eloquently about the strength of their friendship and Emma's unwavering loyalty. John's best man recounted humorous and heartfelt stories from their college days, painting a picture of a man who, despite his success, had always valued genuine connections. As the night drew on, The energy in the room remained high. The dance floor was never empty. The music never stopped. John and Emma were at the heart of it all, their love story inspiring everyone around them. Later, as the evening wound down, John and Emma found a quiet corner to themselves. They sat together, watching their friends and family enjoy the celebration. John wrapped his arm around Emma's shoulders, pulling her close. "This is perfect," Emma whispered, resting her head against his chest. Everything turned out just right. John kissed the top of her head, his heart full. It did, and it's only the beginning. As the last of the guests departed and the hall slowly emptied, John and Emma lingered, savoring the final moments of their special day. They had faced doubts, tested their love, and emerged stronger. Now, they looked forward to a future filled with promise and endless possibilities. As the celebration continued, the time came for the newlyweds to share their vows with the assembled guests. The hall, now buzzing with the joyous energy of the evening, quieted as John and Emma took center stage. The spotlight shone softly on them, highlighting the profound connection that had brought them to this moment. Emma was the first to speak. She turned to face John, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "John," she began, her voice steady but filled with heartfelt sincerity. "From the moment we met, you have been my rock, my confidant, and my greatest love. You have shown me the kind of love I never knew existed, a love that is pure, unconditional, and unwavering." Her words were met with a soft murmur of appreciation from the guests. Emma continued, "Today, in front of our family and friends, I promise to love you for who you are, to stand by your side through every challenge, and to cherish the joy and laughter we share. I vow to be your partner, your supporter, and your best friend. No matter what life throws our way, I will always choose you, just as you have chosen me." John felt a lump in his throat as Emma's words washed over him. Her sincerity and commitment were palpable, touching his heart in ways he had never imagined. He took a deep breath, gathering his own thoughts, and began his vows. "Emma," John said, his voice filled with emotion, "you have brought light into my life in ways I never thought possible. Your love has shown me the true meaning of trust and devotion. I am in awe of your strength, your kindness, and your unwavering faith in us." He paused for a moment, collecting himself. "Standing here with you, I promise to honor and cherish you every day. I vow to support your dreams, to stand by you through the highs and the lows, and to always be there for you, just as you have been for me. You are my heart, my soul, and my everything. I love you more than words can express, and I am forever grateful that you chose to spend your life with me." As John finished, a wave of applause and cheers erupted from the guests. The emotion in the room was palpable, with many wiping away tears. The vows had not only reaffirmed John and Emma's love for each other, but had also moved everyone present, reinforcing the power of genuine, unconditional love. The celebrant stepped forward, smiling warmly. "John and Emma, your vows have touched us all. May your love continue to grow and flourish as you embark on this new journey together. With the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." John and Emma turned to each other, their eyes locking in a moment of pure joy. They leaned in, sealing their vows with a kiss that was both tender and passionate. The guests erupted in applause once more, celebrating the couple's profound commitment to each other. As they pulled apart, John whispered, "I love you, Emma." "I love you too, John," she replied, her smile radiant. The evening continued with heartfelt toasts and speeches from friends and family. Emma's maid of honor spoke of their enduring friendship and the incredible bond between Emma and John. "Emma has always been a beacon of love and strength," she said, raising her glass. "And John, you have brought out the best in her. Here's to a lifetime of happiness for the both of you." John's best man, Michael, took his turn, sharing stories from their college days and the deep friendship they had forged over the years. "John, you've always been someone I look up to, not just for your success, but for your integrity and heart. And Emma, you've made my friend the happiest man in the world." To John and Emma, may your love continue to inspire us all. The couple's parents also shared their blessings, expressing their joy and pride. Emma's father, his voice thick with emotion, said, Emma, you've always been my little girl, and seeing you so happy with John fills my heart with pride. John, welcome to our family. We are blessed to have you." The night was filled with laughter, tears of joy, and a deep sense of connection among everyone present. John and Emma's declarations of love had set the tone for the rest of the evening, making it a celebration of not just their union, but the enduring power of love itself. As the night wore on and the celebration continued, John and Emma found a moment of quiet amidst the festivities. They slipped away from the dance floor and made their way to a small, secluded garden just outside the grand hall. The moonlight cast a gentle glow over the lush greenery, creating an intimate setting for a much-needed conversation. John held Emma's hand as they walked, his heart heavy with the need to fully reconcile the events of the day. He had tested Emma's love in an unconventional and risky way, and though her reaction had reassured him, he felt a deep urge to discuss everything openly. They reached a small bench under a blooming magnolia tree and sat down. John turned to Emma, his eyes filled with sincerity and remorse. "Emma, there's something I need to say," he began, his voice soft but steady. "I know that what I did today was drastic, and I can't fully express how sorry I am for putting you through that. I doubted your love, and for that, I deeply apologize." Emma squeezed his hand, her expression tender and understanding. "John, I understand why you did it. Your past experiences, your fears, they've shaped you. But I want you to know that I love you, truly and deeply, for who you are. You don't need to test me or prove anything. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." John felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he knew there was more to say. "I appreciate that more than you know, Emma, but I also realize that trust needs to be mutual. I need to trust you just as you trust me. Today showed me that, and I promise to work on that every day." Emma nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "We both have our insecurities, John, but love means facing them together, not letting them drive us apart. What we have is special, and I believe we can overcome anything as long as we're honest with each other." John smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "You're right. From now on, no more tests, no more doubts. Just us, facing everything together." He leaned in and kissed her softly, sealing his promise with a tender embrace. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, enjoying the serenity of the garden and the comforting presence of each other. The sounds of the celebration drifted faintly in the background, a reminder of the joy and love that surrounded them. Emma rested her head on John's shoulder, her voice a gentle murmur. "I always knew you had a good heart, John. Even with all your fears and doubts, you've always tried to protect the people you care about. That's one of the reasons I love you." John felt a lump form in his throat. "And I love you for your strength, your kindness, and your unwavering faith in us. You make me want to be a better man, Emma." They stayed in the garden a while longer, talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. They discussed their plans, their fears, and the challenges they might face. Each word, each promise, brought them closer, reinforcing the bond that had been tested and proven stronger than ever. When they finally stood to return to the party, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. The doubts and fears that had once plagued him were now replaced with a deep, abiding trust in Emma and in their love. He knew that, together, they could face anything. As they rejoined their guests, hand in hand, the room seemed to light up with their presence. Friends and family greeted them with smiles and warm words, their support a testament to the love that had been so openly displayed. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of joy and celebration. John and Emma danced, laughed, and shared in the happiness of their special day. The challenges of the past were behind them, and ahead lay a future bright with promise and love. The first rays of dawn began to break over the horizon as the last of the guests departed, leaving John and Emma in the now quiet and serene grand hall. The remnants of the night's celebration, the empty glasses, the scattered petals, and the soft strains of the last dance, created a peaceful aftermath of joy and love. John and Emma stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and memories they had created. John looked at Emma, his heart swelling with a profound sense of gratitude and love. "Emma, today was beyond anything I could have imagined. Despite everything, You showed me the true depth of your love, and I am more grateful than words can express." Emma smiled, her eyes sparkling with the remnants of happy tears. "John, this day was perfect because we faced it together. I wouldn't have it any other way. We've been through a lot, but it's only made us stronger." They walked to the balcony overlooking the garden, where they had shared their heartfelt conversation earlier. The first light of morning bathed the garden in a soft, golden glow, symbolizing a new beginning for both of them. John wrapped his arm around Emma's waist, pulling her close as they gazed out at the dawn. "Emma, I promise to always cherish and honor the love we share," John said quietly. "I know now that trust and faith are the foundations of our relationship. With you by my side, I feel like we can face anything." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, her heart full. "And I promise to always stand by you, John. No matter what challenges come our way, we'll face them together. Our love is stronger than any fear or doubt." As they stood there, embraced by the beauty of the new day, they felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. The journey they had embarked on, filled with tests and revelations, had brought them to this moment of clarity and unity. They were ready to begin their life together, fortified by the trials they had overcome and the unwavering bond they had forged. The sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the city. John and Emma turned back into the hall, where their friends and family were beginning to stir, preparing for the next chapter of their lives. The day ahead was filled with promise, a testament to the power of their love and the strength they had found in each other. As they mingled with the remaining guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes, John and Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that their love story was just beginning, and they were eager to write the next chapter together. One of Emma's bridesmaids approached them with a bright smile. "You two are an inspiration," she said warmly. "Seeing your love and commitment has been truly heartwarming. I'm so happy for both of you." John and Emma exchanged a glance, their smiles reflecting their shared understanding. "Thank you," Emma replied. "We feel incredibly blessed to have such wonderful friends and family supporting us." Michael, John's best friend, joined them, his eyes twinkling with affection. "John, Emma, you two have shown us all what true love looks like. Here's to many years of happiness and adventure." As the morning unfolded, John and Emma prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a trip they had meticulously planned to celebrate their new beginning. They were eager to explore the world together, to create new memories and experiences that would strengthen their bond even further. Before they left, John took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them here. The doubts and fears that had once clouded his heart were now replaced with a steadfast trust and a deep, abiding love. He knew that, with Emma by his side, there was nothing they couldn't face. As they drove away from the grand hall, hand in hand, the city waking up around them, John and Emma felt a profound sense of joy and anticipation. Their story was just beginning, and they were ready to face the future together, their hearts intertwined and their love unwavering. In the end, the test of their love had not only proven Emma's sincerity, but had also taught John the true meaning of trust and faith. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had led them to a place of deep understanding and commitment. And as they set off on their new adventure, they knew that their love would continue to grow, guiding them through whatever life had in store. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe, like, and comment, and check out the next story.